From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
The Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour heads into the home stretch.
Southwest Iowa is on the drought monitor. How will yields end up because of it? We investigate later in the show.
And it's dryness also eating into yields in another key I state. We'll have the update from the eastern leg of the crop tour.
In agribusiness, we've talked corn and beans. What about wheat?
We had a global, or we're kind of in the midst of what I'd call a global crop scare event. We had production issues all around the world.
Restaurant business is booming. Details on Drovers TV and digging through trash in search of treasure.
AgDay, presented by the Chevy Silverado. High-strength steel for high-strength dependability.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. The Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is in its final days as scouts work north out of Iowa toward Rochester, Minnesota. Crop Tour scouts working their way across states with plenty of question marks. In Iowa, drought and dryness has plagued the southern portions of the state, while Minnesota has also seen its fair share of weather woes. This year, from late snows to heavy rains, and now expanding dryness.
Coverage of the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour is brought to you by Pioneer. You can always count on your local Pioneer team to provide year-round support. Year after year, Pioneer is committed to the success of every acre on your farm. Pioneer, with you from the word go.
Backtracking to the results from day 2 of the tour, scouts in Nebraska tabulating a corn yield of 179 bushels to the acre. Last year, it was 165 on tour. Compare that to USDA's forecast in August of 196 bushels per acre. Crop Tour generally misses USDA's average because it only samples about 40% of irrigated corn in Nebraska versus the state actual average of 60% irrigation. Soybeans right at that 1,300 pods in a 3x3 foot square, about 200 higher than a year ago. Out west, scouts set across some of the drought-stressed parts of Iowa on Wednesday. Betsy Gibbon continues our coverage from the western leg.
Clinton, the scouts I was with traveled through Page and Fremont counties, both shown abnormally dry on the drought monitor. However, the samples we collected show something much different than what you see from the road. Take a look and you'll see Southwest Iowa has been dry this growing season.
The week before the tour here, we had put up all our third cutting hay. No rain on any of our hay this year.
Little rain until days ago.
Sunday night, we had the gauge goes to 5 and it was full. There was local reports of 7 and 8 inches.
Wow, look at that big thing.
The news of rain as scouts make their way to see fields for themselves. Does that field look better than what it does from the road?
I would consider that looks better than from the road, no question about it. We got out there, the ear count was good. The ears were really nice. Obviously, when we pulled them out of here, filled out to the end.
Expectations of a drought-stressed crop now broken.
I figured it'd be down a little bit with the drier weather, with the dry weather they've had in Missouri, but obviously they've gotten enough rain and had enough soil moisture that it's weathered it very well.
I was kind of thinking we were going to see some ragged plants and some pollination issues. So far, we've not seen that at all.
Soybeans also showing strong pod counts, better than these scouts anticipated.
It's like a carpet out here. I mean, it's perfect. There's no weak spots. You know, pod counts are very good too, 1,100 to 2,200. There's also good soil moisture too to fill the beans, so they got a good crop around here.
Counties east of us are under a severe and moderate drought, and those are counties we did not sample along our route. Reporting in Southwest Iowa, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
Thanks, Betsy. On Tuesday, the eastern leg rolling out its expectations for Indiana. It pegs corn yields at 182 bushels to the acre, about 11 bushels higher than a year ago, while soybean counts were also better at 1,300 pods in a 3x3 foot square. Again, about 100 or so pods better than last year. On Wednesday, the eastern leg of the tour made its way across Illinois. Tyne Morgan stopped in McLean County to visit an area known as one of the best growing regions in the country. Tyne?
Thanks, Clinton. Well, it's an I state that usually boasts big yields, but scouts this year aren't seeing the bountiful bushels that USDA posted in its August report. As crop scouts scooted across central Illinois on Wednesday,
8, 6.
It's an average crop coming to light.
Having come through this route last year as well, I think that while the yields have been consistent, they haven't really been not nearly as good as they were last year.
And while ear counts are higher,
it doesn't seem to be as much weight, and as we know, this year is going to come down to what the weight of the ears are.
it's a far cry from USDA's current projections showing a record crop.
And the USDA numbers at 207 and 64, you all of a sudden have this pre-notion, predetermined idea about what things will look like, and it's a little bit disappointing.
For McLean County, Illinois farmer Dennis Wentworth,
This is perfect. This is perfectly pollinated, perfectly filled out.
but when you take a few paces into the field,
You can see just a totally different ear.
you see later season moisture became muted.
So this is a much smaller ear. This is going to have half the kernels on it as one of the bigger ears.
And it's those infield issues eating into yields.
We would have hoped to have been in that 240, 250 bushel yield on the higher end. I think we're going to be in that 200 plus to 225 area, probably down 10% from last year's average.
But the beans,
These have branched out real nice.
look bountiful in some fields, with tall plants loaded with pods.
We've had years where we had tall beans and the combine's growling trying to get through them, but nothing's coming out in the bin. That's not the case this year.
He thinks his yields this year could push 80 bushels per acre in some cases.
46 years of doing this, that's an incredible yield for us.
But as scouts searched more Illinois soybean fields,
You had one with 50, one with 27, one with 40. I mean, one with 27 pod count. That's not that impressive.
Not on 30-inch rows, no, it's not.
Meyer says some soybean fields look better from the road.
I think what most importantly is that the variability in pod counts has been something we've seen as high as 1,200 and as low as 500.
And it's a variable crop that Meyer thinks could prevent the state's average from reaching new record yields. Reporting from Illinois, I'm Tyne Morgan for AgDay.
All right, thanks, Tyne. In other news, agriculture with the new hope for breakthroughs in the U.S.-China trade war as trade officials from both countries meet in Washington for the first time in 2 months to discuss possible solutions. Meanwhile, in China, pork imports from Chile, the European Union, and others are on the rise as costs from the U.S. increase due to tariffs. That's according to Kofco Meat Holdings. Reuters also reporting a major Chinese pig farm says a big portion of its newly expanded pig farming capacity is idle due to rising feed costs, including soy meal. Let's continue our look at farm country with Mike Hoffman. He has today's crop comments. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Clinton. As we've been talking, it's been a tough growing season for farmers in the Texas Panhandle. A farmer from Muleshoe, Texas says their area is as bad as they've ever seen, and they've been farming since 1973. They say it's comparable to 2011. Crops look terrible, and what are out there will be very short. Now, taking a look at the wind speed forecast, it is going to turn pretty windy across the middle of the country as we head through this afternoon, also back into parts of Colorado and Wyoming, as you can see there. And the winds will continue with that storm system moving into the western Great Lakes down into Texas for tomorrow morning, and that will only intensify as we head through the day. We'll talk more about your forecast, but first, here are some hometown temps.
Ag Day, brought to you by Top Third Ag Marketing. Farmer first with a plan for every market. Count on your Pioneer team to bring local knowledge and insights. Year after year, Pioneer is committed to the success of every acre on your farm. Pioneer, with you from the word go.
Young couples just getting started in a farming career need look no further than the Caraways of Murray, Kentucky for inspiration. The husband and wife team has turned a love of the farm into a profitable business, capable of withstanding the twists and turns of everyday life. Scouting a crop on a hot Kentucky day.
Yeah, it looks good. The leaves look good. I see a little bit of worm damage, but not much.
Needs some water.
Yeah, more than anything, it needs water.
Is a chance for Craig and Joanna Caraway to see the results of another season's handiwork. Their farm in Murray, Kentucky has grown thanks to steady strides in the right direction.
Didn't have to be complicated. We just got a notebook out and I sat down and I said, what's some things you want to see with the farm? What's your goals? Like, what do you want to do?
Goals written and set aside, lost for 10 years until just a few weeks ago.
I found that notebook and I got it out and I said, you got to look at this.
And she starts reading them to me and saying, and I'm like, well, we've done that, we've done that.
We have done every single thing on this list but 3.
An accomplishment that started nearly 2 decades ago.
By the time we went on our first date, we were basically planning our future.
I was gonna go do something else and it was in my blood and I just felt it calling me back.
Taking a chance to partner with Craig's parents and setting up a lease-to-own plan with his grandmother.
That helped her with taxes, and it helped us to transition in as a stair step.
It worked really well for us.
Their very first year, 2006, was a bumper crop. The very next year, drought and a complete crop failure.
We had soybeans that I will never forget made 11.7 as an average. I have a degree in agronomy, and I thought our technology had surpassed that.
After 2007, you needed a backup plan, I guess. Is that fair to say?
We did. So we realized that tobacco, we could irrigate it on a small scale, and that would work. That could be our plan B.
So, you know, we didn't live above our means. We didn't spend a lot of money, extra money that we didn't need to be spending.
We never bought boats, four-wheelers, any kind of extracurricular activities did not happen if it didn't make money, because that would take away from our goals. And once he, and I'm going to try not to get upset, so you'll have to end up editing this.
Yes, I was diagnosed in February of 2016 with brain cancer. So we've had to throw all that in the mix.
Once he was diagnosed, we realized that maybe that wasn't always the best choice.
Craig was given less than 14 months to live.
Before his first brain surgery, we sat down, and it was not, we never thought, there was no conversations of, I wish we'd have farmed more acres. I wish we'd have made more money. I wish we'd have built more barns. We didn't think of any of those. It was the vacations we didn't take, and the camping trips we didn't go on, and the things that we didn't do because our life was consumed by work.
She found specialists in Houston, helped Craig get into a cutting-edge medical trial. 2 surgeries, and more than 2.5 years later, Craig is still fighting, still facing the future with his family.
So daily I get up and just thank God that I'm waking up and I'm still here for another day.
And today, it means savoring every moment, taking weekends off, going to ball games and camping. Those goals scribbled into a notebook 10 years ago, and the plans for disaster-proofing a business. Now, just a step along an uncertain path with immeasurable returns.
We didn't get there with focusing on the end. We got there focusing on what we got to do today.
Such an inspiration. Up next, we'll check on wheat markets in analysis. And picking through a landfill doesn't sound like much fun, but the end result could reap big benefits. While spring wheat harvest pushes toward a close and winter wheat planting gets ready to begin, what are markets doing? Tyne Morgan asked that question from the road in today's analysis.
Here now with Joe Vaklovic of Standard Grain. Joe, to watch these wheat prices, it has been a wild ride on both sides of the spectrum. But do you think bottom line demand is there?
Well, first off, we had a global, or we're kind of in the midst of what I'd call a global crop scare event. We had production issues all around the world. Australia, Russia, Ukraine, the EU, here in the US we've had issues. So the market ran up on production fears. I think we're to the point where we've probably priced in the majority of that. Now comes the question is this, can we find some demand for U.S. wheat? And it's the lack of export demand or activity out of the U.S. for wheat has been a chronic problem for years. We've got a flawed storage system is what I'd call it here in the U.S. It really incentivizes the commercials to not sell the stuff. So last week, as a matter of fact, we saw some really strong export sales for the first time in a long time. If we can sustain that sort of pace, then we've got a story on our hands, but I'm not necessarily confident that's going to be the case.
Any buyer specifically that you're watching saying, hey, if this country ramps up its buys of U.S. wheat, we could be in for higher prices?
Well, any of your major importers, I mean Egypt, for example, but Mexico would be another one. But just in general, the fact that Russia has undercut us for so long as kind of our competitor, we've just dropped below Russia on the world market in terms of prices. That's something that may spur some better demand.
All right, so overall though, what's your outlook on wheat prices the rest of the year?
I generally think that crop scares are selling opportunities for the farmer, so I'm going to stick with that idea. That's not to say that we couldn't go much higher short term.
All right, Joe, thank you so much. We appreciate it. Let's take a quick break here on Ag Day, and then we'll have much more.
For more information about Standard Grain and its services, call Joe at 312-462-4438.
Welcome back to Ag Day, Mike. As we look at the map, rain right there in the middle of the country.
Yeah, and it's a decent system, actually, especially ahead of that warm front sometimes during late night and early morning hours. There's the map this morning. A cool dome of high pressure dominating the Great Lakes, northern Mississippi Valley, all the way into the southeast. Out ahead of that, then, the cold front will cause a few scattered showers and thunderstorms this afternoon across central and south Florida especially. There's that system finally starting to pick up some moisture into the northern plains. Hit and miss activity in the southwest. It's always typical for this time of the year. Now by tomorrow morning, here's where we get some decent rains. Minnesota, down into parts of Iowa, Illinois, Wisconsin. By early tomorrow morning, that front will continue to move off to the east, and you can see the warm front kind of loses the moisture, which is typical during the afternoon. It may redevelop as it moves farther northeast. But then we get the cold front with some showers and thunderstorms along it. Hit and miss activity in Florida and also in the southwest. Precipitation estimate past 24 hours. You can see the areas there adding in the next 36. There's that system getting wetter and wetter as it comes to the east, starts picking up some of that Gulf moisture. Florida ends up with a decent amount in a lot of areas as well, and hit and miss activity in the southwest. The heat continues for Oklahoma, Texas, farther north though. This is very comfortable air for this time of the year from the northern plains all the way to the mid-Atlantic northeastward. Lows tonight from the Great Lakes into the northeast, 50s and 60s. But it's going to be muggy from Kansas City southward. Heading through tomorrow afternoon, that heat moves on up into Kansas City, and that heat's going to start to spread northeast, taking back that cool air that we've seen for a few days there in the Corn Belt. There's the jet stream. You can see the trough moving off to the northeast. We start to see another piece of a trough, but the ridge starts to take control as we head into next week, as you can see in the east with a trough out west. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Bellingham, Washington, first of all, cooler with clouds and some sunshine, high of 72. Joplin, Missouri, cloudy, a shower or thunderstorm is a possibility, high 78. And Elmira, New York, morning fog, then sunny, high around 75.
When we come back, a look at the recent boom in food spending at America's restaurants, and the old adage, one man's trash is another man's treasure, is proving true in Europe.
Advice, information, ideas, and more. If it's ag tech, it's in the Tech Tool Shed, your unbiased one-stop source for everything ag tech.
In our Drovers TV report, according to the latest numbers at the Commerce Department, spending at U.S. restaurants surged over the past 3 months. It's the biggest surge on record, going back to the start of records from 1992. Sales at food service and drink establishments rose more than 25% in 3 months to $61.6 billion.
Economists say the figures indicate consumers remain quite comfortable with their personal financial situation and the economic outlook. Restaurants accounted for 30% of the July increase in retail sales, but just 12% of the total.
Henderson says one possible explanation is that restaurants have recently hiked their menu prices to keep up with higher minimum wages and rent costs. For example, last month, McDonald's reported a gain in same-store sales, but its customer traffic still fell in the U.S., suggesting fewer diners are coming in, but they're spending more. Landfills are all around. Scientists are devising new ways to recover waste materials and transform them into useful products. That's next.
In the Country, brought to you by Kubota's M7060, built to get the job done. See KubotaUSA.com or your local Kubota dealer for more information.
Landfills dot the countryside, both here and abroad. These repositories of our trash may also be a source of treasure. There are an estimated 500,000 landfills in Europe, and our throwaway culture continues to increase the demand. With tons of rubbish thrown out every day, managing waste is becoming more and more problematic. Well, scientists in Europe are tackling the growing issue from a new angle, looking at waste as a starting point for new materials. They remove common recyclable materials such as metal, plastics, and glass, but their real interest is in the waste that's not easily recycled.
We dig it up, the waste of the landfill. We take the easy recycling parts out of the landfill, like the metals. Then we end up with a not so easy recyclable fraction that we gasify in a plasma furnace, which gives us a hydrogen stream and a clean mineral stream.
That clean mineral stream he speaks of can be turned into a form of concrete, a more sustainable concrete. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.